For everybody out there listening, hi, my name is Chris. This is Chee-Tash, and today I'm joined by Will from the YouTube channel. Will, how are you today?
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How did you get your start on YouTube? Because the first video I saw of yours, it wasn't even that long ago that you first posted your first video.
It's kind of my dirty little secret. I've been posting, on and off for like a while, just on different stuff. Like my girlfriend and I were making TikToks, and it wasn't really like a strict like I was a dumb boyfriend character, but all the ones that went well, I was this kind of like dumb boyfriend character. So yeah, we were posting on TikTok pretty consistently, and then we just kind of like it just stopped. So this is actually my third YouTube channel. The first one, it's like I've been on YouTube since like 2007. I don't know, like a machinima, like Hutch and Scene Anners and Mr. Stark. You're familiar with any of those guys?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was watching like Call of Duty, every day, get home from school, make a snack, like sit down and watch Modern Warfare 2, like nuke in 2 minutes with commentary or whatever. And I remember like starting to watch when they started doing commentary, I was like, it's just so funny to think back, it's like to see where kind of all the gaming stuff is at now. And so, I would say like probably, yeah, almost, oh my gosh, almost 20 years. YouTube's probably been my most consistent like platform to go seek entertainment on. I did stand up in high school, I did stand up in college, and I was on an improv team. And so I was really like, it's funny to think back. It was like when I was a senior in high school, I was like, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian or I'm going to be nothing, which is a very funny, toxic thing for a 17-year-old to believe. I just always, and it's like I pretty much retired from performing. And retired is sort of generous because it's like I was doing it at college and I was like grinding open mics in various cities. Like I never really got any momentum, never sold the ticket, but I also wasn't really, it just, it just ended up not being for me. Yeah, my girlfriend and I were posting TikToks for a little bit, and then I made like a gaming channel and quickly found out that like, it's like all the gaming content I would watch. It was partially because of the personalities, but it was mostly because like they were doing something in the game that I couldn't, and I straight up was just not good enough at any of the games I wanted to make content about. So I found myself grinding. I found my like the biggest barrier of making a video was like, if I want to accomplish this thing in this game, I have to play it for 60 hours. And there's no guarantee that I'll be able to beat it. Like you ever played Balatro?
No, I've never heard of it.
It's a roguelike deck builder kind of based off poker. It got nominated for Game of the Year a couple of years ago, but it's a sick game. I really recommend it. It's very accessible. But essentially I was trying to beat it on like the hardest difficulty. And it took me, so I made a video that was like 3 minutes long, basically summarizing like, I forget, it's like 150 tries or something like that. And like I cut in most of the times I died and like progressively got more upset for whatever. And so that video did well, like that got a couple thousand views. And I was like, oh, maybe this will be what my channel is about. And so then I was like, my angle was sort of like regular guy who's okay at games tries to do the hardest thing. And then you ever heard of this game Blueprints?
I haven't heard of that one either.
It's another like roguelike, but essentially it's like you're building this puzzle board in like a haunted kind of mansion. Anyways, it's like in the game, in like game days, it takes like maybe 30 days to beat it. But once you know how to beat it, you could do it on the first day if you're lucky enough. So yeah, I tried to do that, but after like 40 hours of trying, and every time I would die, I would keep a log of how I died. I ran out of this resource, I ran out of that resource or whatever. And the idea was in the end, I would comb through all the footage to be like, I got the closest here, I got the closest here, I got the closest here. And then I finally did it. But I just gave up because I was like, it's too difficult, or it's just like I haven't gotten lucky enough yet. So, and yeah, so the gaming stuff, I was just like, I'm just not good enough. I don't have the time to really sink into these games to, well, it's the skill, because I'm like, I watch a lot of gaming stuff, and like another guy that comes to mind is Bushy. He makes Elden Ring videos, and he just like beats Elden Ring with the on level one with no power ups or whatever like that. So I tried to make a video where it was like every time I die, I put on another hat, and I had like 40 hats. Before I beat the first boss, I was wearing all 40 hats, and it's like, well, I like the idea. I'm just like, oh, that's good. It's like I just wasn't good enough at the game. And then my girlfriend and I had like a little cooking channel that I thought the idea was really cute. I was like remaking her favorite Trader Joe's frozen meals. It's like she would eat it and she'd be like, "That's what I like about it. It's what I wish was better." And I think that's a great concept, and I think we were great in it. But just like from like a like production quality perspective, it's like I'm shooting it on one iPhone on a wide shot, and it's just not. It didn't look good, because it's like I have a wide shot and I'm trying to punch in on our faces, and I think that reads like immediately to the audience. Like, it's I try to be very honest with myself about like what works in a video and what doesn't, and like I just knew that that didn't really work. And then the other part of it too, like the food styling of it all, it's like the food content on YouTube is really polished. You get like from like your Bon Appetits to like Joshua Weissman or like Adam Ragusia. I love Adam Ragusia. I just want to, for anybody listening who likes food stuff, Adam Ragusia is like my favorite guy. It's just like like food looks bad in most color temperatures. Like you have to get the color temperatures right. You have to get the lighting right. You have to this. So it's like the videos I thought were like kind of like visually uninteresting and unappealing. And they didn't really do very well. Like our friends watched them and our friends liked them. But they were just like pretty difficult to produce. Yeah, so I had some experience making videos. I've obviously been on the platform for probably 20 years, which is hilarious to say. Since I was 11. I'm 31. So, that's probably not, yeah, it's probably been 20 years. Jesus. I just watched you ever seen that video, The Evolution of Dance? It was like one of the first viral YouTube videos.
Yes, I remember that video. Yeah.
It just popped up in my feed and I went and watched it. And it's very funny. It's like not very good dancing. But then also the dude has a whole other, I could go on a tangent about that. Maybe we will later. But anyways, so yeah, I felt like, and then I just was watching Mad Men. I watched it when I was in high school, and then I was watching it now. And yeah, the first video I made, it's like the season 6, episode 6. I think it's when CGC merges back with, or merges with Sterling Cooper, and I just felt the pacing was totally different from the rest of the show, and I could feel that I had like a bunch of stuff to say about it, and so then I was like, oh, like let me, and I would say also like I was watching a lot of video essays besides video game content. I think as I've gotten older, it's like I've shifted to watching more like cooking and like video essay stuff. And so like I watch like Alt Shift X, especially. He makes Game of Thrones videos like for every episode. And he breaks it down like compared to the books, and like, just really gives you perspective on the whole show. And so there's him, and then there's maybe like 5 other video essayists that I'm like pretty like locked in on. And so I was like, oh, I could just see the video in my head. Yeah, then I just freaking chopped it up, and luckily it caught some traction, which I am grateful for, to say the least. That was a pretty long answer for one question.
No, that's really cool to hear about your journey. I wanted to know, making content for TikTok versus YouTube, does it require a different approach, uploading stuff or making stuff for either platform, or are there similarities?
Yeah, I would say it's so totally different. I'd say TikTok was mostly like me handing the phone to my girlfriend and being like, "Will you please record me? Would you please record me? And would you please?" And it's not like she wasn't absolutely happy to do it, but it's like sometimes we'd be like out, and I'd be like, "I have an idea," and I'd be like, "Oh, actually, maybe not now." But yeah, the TikTok videos were just like, it's like we got 1 million likes once, purely by like happenstance. We had just watched the Robert Pattinson Batman, and the screen was on our TV, and it was a real life conversation that we had that we turned into a TikTok, where she was like, she said that she thought it was funny that he is not a very good detective, in the movie. I was like, not to mansplain, but he's not supposed to be a very good detective because it's his first year being Batman. And he ends up being the world's greatest detective. Or I said something to that effect, and then she said, "That's not mansplaining." So that was the real conversation, and then the video is that conversation. But then when she goes, "It's not mansplaining," I go, "Oh, sorry, because you're a woman," and then it cuts, and it's like it's just a silly joke about mansplaining. But what made it go so viral was I said that Batman is the world's greatest detective, which is incorrect in DC lore of what I've learned from the comments. So it's like bunch of DC comic book guys are in the comments popping off about how I'm incorrect about that. Um, Also, just like a lot of men being like mansplaining does not exist, which like that's like not so like for the first little bit I'm in the comments being like, guys, this actually wasn't the point of the video. Like it's a joke about mansplaining, but mansplaining is, it's et cetera, et cetera. Um, but essentially, it's like those two, the comments really drove the engagement. So, while I think the joke is like fine and cute, it's not something that I'm like, look at this thing that I made, you know. But yeah, so sorry, back to the yeah, for the YouTube stuff, and it's like, I've made 6 videos now, and um, I have like a better system in place than when I started, but yeah, it's like I'm pretty much on script for like 95% of it. I set up my laptop and I hold my mouse in my hand and I load up a teleprompter website and I scroll through and I'm mostly reading word for word, and then if I find something I want to like riff on or I think would be fun in the edit later, I do that versus like the TikToks were usually just like one takers, like like I had another one where I was like boyfriend who, like, I don't know, like dumb boyfriend at your friend's wedding. And like afterwards, I'm just like, I ate 2 dinners. Can you believe that? Her uncle was awesome. He showed me his samurai sword in his truck. Like, so that one's just much more like we have an idea and we press go. And also like my girlfriend was absolutely half of it because she was behind the camera teeing me up for stuff. Just want to shout her out. I love you, babe. If she can hear me in the other room, probably. So double shout out.
Are there video essayists or other content creators that you kind of take inspiration for when you've made the videos that you have so far?
Yeah. Yeah. So I talked about Alt Shift X, who makes Game of Thrones content, who's like, and it's like really, it's like I've read the first 2 Game of Thrones books, but I love the show. I love all the shows. I mean, not the end of the original Game of Thrones. I've actually just recently rewatched that with my girlfriend. She is just watching it for the first time, and like, the fall off is very funny. But anyways, Alt Shift X is like, there's just such a breath of birth. There's so much Game of Thrones content besides the shows, like the books and then the encyclopedias, and I don't know how many books there are written outside of the Song of Ice and Fire series, but and there's like a lot of Easter eggs in the shows. And so basically he'll take a plot line and he'll be like, this is what it was in the books. It was this much bigger, or they invented this character. It was an amalgamation of these 3 characters in the books. And I just like have watched every video, like start to finish, because it's just so interesting. And I've kind of always admired. It's like one time he posted a job listing, like looking for like, like a scriptwriter or something like that. They have to have extensive knowledge of the Game of Thrones book series. And I was almost like, do I lock in and try to read all these books? And then it's like, obviously you can't, but I was like, oh, this guy's great. Probably another that person that was like someone I really love all of her videos is Lindsay Ellis. Do you know Lindsay?
Yeah, I'm familiar. I've seen a lot of her content. Yeah.
Yeah. I just like love the way, also, I mean, I think I forget her degrees, but like she might be a PhD in like media, something, 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 something. It's like she had a video, like one that comes to mind is like, it was like she had a video about the character of the Wicked Witch in all of its different iterations, and was essentially like, like the James Franco Oz movie, the Wicked Witch is just like a woman scorned, and how that like sucks, And so, and she just has she just made one about like there's like a kind of accusation that Disney stole Aladdin from another animator. And it's like, yeah, I watched an hour-long video about that. And yeah, I just think like the sort of zooming in and then the zooming out really is It's just so fascinating. Yeah, I would say like academic or like very like well researched and like factual like video essayists, but then cosmonaut variety hour. I don't know if that's the name. His name is like cosmonaut something. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. But he's much more like vibes based. He's much more like he's like I mean, but not to say that he isn't very familiar with all the source material he's talking about. But you know, it's like he's seeing popular culture stuff, and he's just like, this sucked or this is good, and his videos are like just a lot shorter, but still very like they're still very well reasoned and you know and thought out. And so I would say that yeah, those are like the three big ones that come to mind of like video essayists that I just like think are doing great.
Was there any particular reason to start creating content around Mad Men? Like, I know you said you watched it in high school, but recently, like, did you watch it on stream as well? And you kind of took inspiration from that?
Yeah, it was released it was re-released or whatever, like the streaming premiere on HBO Max, I think in January maybe. It was like a 4K remaster, which looks really sick. I'm not like a big like cinematography head. I don't really know about lenses and stuff, but the remaster looks really cool. And so I think like, you know, I'm very on Twitter. You know, like I'm refreshing the feed, seeing what everybody's talking about. I'm very on like I feel like I'm very on pop culture Twitter. And yeah, I felt like everybody was rewatching Mad Men. Like we all were rewatching it together, kind of. And so, you know, it's like I was not only watching the show, but also like seeing everybody tweet about it and kind of getting like the retrospective in 2026 it was very like in my mind. And then also like when my girlfriend and I watch shows together, like we're having, you know, we're talking about the characters, like we're doing our own little deep dives together. Yeah, I just remember watching that. Well, I'm trying to think back. I'm like, I definitely had a couple ideas of video essays like kicking around in my notes app. And so it's definitely like something that was like, and I watch them all the time. So it was kind of just in my mind. And then, yeah, I watched that episode where the pacing is totally different. And I just seemed like the show was just so different. And I was like, oh, I think that this is something that people would engage with. And I just felt like I had a lot to say about it. And like when I was doing stand up, I remember I would really try to talk about stuff that I cared about. Cause I just remember so many times people would go up and they'd read off their notebook or they would do their 10 jokes that they know. And there'd be no kind of element of like, they wouldn't really be poking at anything or they wouldn't really be pulling on anything. They would just be like, set up, punchline, blah. And it was boring to watch. So yeah. And then because I was watching Mad Men, I figured it's like, oh, okay, like I had success with the first video about Mad Men. I might as well make some other ones. And then yeah, I made 3 more, which were it was difficult because I got busy. I work in production for I production supervised a movie right after that, like a small indie movie. I think hopefully it'll be on streaming one day. But so when I was done with that, I was like, I need to rewatch season 7 because part of what was interesting about posting about Mad Men, something that has a cultural footprint, you know, and like people feel strongly about, and also, you know, kind of what I've been figuring out is like a movie is 2 hours. It's like, I'm probably not going to miss that much stuff in a 2-hour movie, but in a show with, I don't know, 80 episodes that are all 40 minutes, it's like, it is it's such a big amount of content, you know. I really like, I wanted to go back and rewatch and really made sure that I was correct in my assumptions. And it's funny. It's like I'm only 90% correct really in all of my videos. Somebody is always like, well, there's this. And I go, oh, that's actually a really good point. I'm like, I wish I had remembered that or thought of that.
Do you get people that maybe ask you for like recommendations for shows, and do you often recommend people to watch Mad Men? And if somebody kind of asks you what that show is about, what would you say is like a very succinct description of Mad Men?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say I'm like an authority on what shows to recommend, like with the people in my life, but uh I had, yeah, people have, as I've made these videos, some people are like, what are they about? I'm like, oh, it's about Mad Men. They're like, oh, I never saw it. And I'm like, yeah, I totally think it's worth a watch. Like, it's definitely, in our era of prestige TV, it's definitely one of the best ones. And I think, I mean, like, there's so many things stand out about the show, but like, definitely, it feels like it's the most well thought out, longest running like period piece from a technical perspective that like nothing else really comes to mind in terms of like detail and like longevity. Like the show really transports you um back into the 60s or to the 60s. Um and then the other thing that's really like alluring to me about the show is like kind of how weird and sloppy it is at times. Like Breaking Bad is my favorite show. And I don't think I could really make any videos about it because I don't have anything to say. I just think the show like speaks for itself. Like it feels like everything in that show is so succinct. It's so nothing is open ended. Everything is tied up perfectly, And it's like, and I feel the same way about Better Call Saul. It's like this, like Vince Gilligan's that guy's great at making TV like that. And not to say that Mad Men isn't amazing and so good, but it's like, like just like weird characters pop in and out. Like weird stuff happens. Like oh, I'm forgetting his name.
Bob Benson.
Yeah, Bob Benson's one of them, but the guy who becomes a monk, who becomes a Buddhist, who writes the Star Trek screenplay about race, you know. Uh it's like seeing those people filter in and out of the show. And then also, like obviously like Walter White is a horrible guy, but his evil is like very rooted in like he wants power, he wants recognition, it's but like Don is like, I think feel like I guess I don't know, Don did kill somebody. I'm like, which one is worse? But I'm like, like Don is like a sexual predator, you know? Like it's just a lot messier and muddier and it's just it's a great show. So yeah, I definitely recommend Mad Men, but then I think like probably the show that I recommend the most that I feel like people have seen the least is The Leftovers on HBO. Have you seen The Leftovers?
I haven't. I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
It's just so it's like, the premise is 90 or 1% of the world's population disappears one day, like a rapture. And the other 99% are left to like deal with the fallout. And I remember hearing about that and I was always like, you must have it the other way. You must have it wrong. It's surely only 1% is left. And it's like, no, only 1% disappears. And it's very sort of like I don't want to call it Christian. It's not like a Christian show, but it's like there's a very sort of like godly horror to it. It's just really it's only 3 seasons and it's like it's freaking dynamite.
Which shows like I know you mentioned Breaking Bad, Mad Men. I know you just recently did a video on The Sopranos too, and all of these shows were very they came out like at around similar times, and I know nowadays, pretty much everybody watches content from these streaming platforms. But do you think watching any of these very powerful shows while they were running on air, like if you could time travel back to 1999 and watch Sopranos while it was on HBO, is it a different experience watching these shows like when you were watching Mad Men on stream versus in high school? It's a different sort of perspective or a different impact for you?
Yeah, I would say like first and foremost, it's like I have a fully developed brain now where I can really like pick up on, instead of just being like, whoa, this Don Draper guy is cool. And in general, it's like watching stuff week to week is I really don't like it, you know, being able to just like burn through what you want to burn through it. I think it also like does the show a lot more justice. And I think that there's like another conversation where like if there's a new show and they dump all the episodes at once, like it kind of just like it's a flash in the pan and it doesn't really stay in the zeitgeist that long. So I totally understand why streamers do the weekly release schedule, but um I think that there's something like so gripping to just be able to like watch several episodes in a row or like watch a whole season of something in like 3 days. Because like I'm watching Widow's Bay right now, and it's on Apple TV. It's so good. But yeah, I'm watching it week to week, and it's like the anticipation is killing me. Uh, but also, it's like it's when you have your whole life for 6 days in between, especially as as an adult, where it's like you really got stuff you got to pay attention to, or bad stuff could happen. Uh, yeah, it's like watching something sort of at your leisure. I think is like a much more enjoyable experience, and for me, it's like a lot easier to engage with what's going on in a more like cohesive, continuous way.
Do you feel like any of these shows that we've discussed, like Mad Men, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, if they were to come out, let's say in today, 2026, present day, do you feel like they would have the same impact and grip on the culture like they would have compared to like when they did come out? Or do you think with streaming and the just abundance of content on streaming, there's sometimes things, I don't want to say get watered down, but it's, something comes up, it's very popular, but then another great show comes up and it's available now, and now we're paying attention to this thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a great point. I mean, like, especially on Apple TV, I feel like Apple TV doesn't really market their shows very much. And it's like every once in a while I go into Apple TV and I'm like, there's 4 seasons of this show with like 3 A-list celebrities and I've never heard of it. It's like there truly is just so much content now. I would like to think that all 3 of those shows would still have the cultural impact that they do today because they're all just like, they're 3 of the best. They're 3 of the best that we got. Watching The Sopranos now, yeah, it's like I think James Gandolfini is like maybe the single greatest casting ever. And I was trying to, I'm like, I have that kind of kicking idea around in my head, like who is the best casting? And I'm like, James Gandolfini is definitely up there. I also think Alec Baldwin in 30 Rock is. But anyways, whole other combo. Not to be like, I don't think you could make The Sopranos in 2026, but I forget until I go back and watch just how brutal all these guys are. It's like all the characters are so racist. And not in a way that I think is really commenting. It's like they're the Italian guys and they're Italian mobsters in the 90s. They're going to be racist. So if it came out today, I still think it would have the cultural grip that it does. If anything, it might really spike the engagement because people would be like, "Can you believe what this show is doing?" um, but yeah, like, I think like all those have staying power, and there's probably a lot of shows right now that have staying power, but no one has seen them because there's just such a flood of information. There's such a flood of television accessible to us right now.
Do you feel with any show, no matter how great it is, and like you used the example of the video that you made where Mad Men jumps the shark a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you find no matter how great a show is, there's bound to be some basically like peaks and valleys, and it's hard to just be like 100% on point for your entire series run? Like other shows you've watched, Game of Thrones, or like you mentioned, The Leftovers, or anything else you're watching right now?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I'm watching the show Widow's Bay about like a haunted island off the coast of Massachusetts that's like trying to have a tourist season. That show is like That show's absolute nails the whole time. Like that show absolutely rips. The last episode, the finale is on Wednesday. But the last episode was a bit of a filler, but it wasn't really a valley. But yeah, I would say in general, I feel like the only show that doesn't have any valleys, and it's like I am one of those guys that's like Breaking Bad is perfect, but like I'm like, oh, dude, Breaking Bad is just absolute 0 to 100 the entire time. Um, but also when I'm talking about like shows and like critiquing them, I try to maintain this sort of like I'm just a guy who has watched the shows. It's like whereas like Alt Shift X or like Lindsay Ellis, it's like I really think they have the credentials where you're like I'm like you really kind of have to have a good reason to disagree with them on something. Um, I very much want to have the vibe that's like I saw this and this is what it made me think of. And if you disagree, you might be right. It's like I was saying before, it's like sometimes I go and read the comments and they're like, you forgot about this one thing that totally makes what you said irrelevant. And I read it and I go, ooh, they have a great point. Um, and so I work in mostly commercial production, mostly for social media, but I've done, TV commercials and stuff like that before. And I've worked on like a couple of movies, to talk about like shows having peaks or valleys. And, it's like I didn't have anything to do with the creative of any of these shows, but, or any of the stuff that I've worked on. But I think that, kind of like there's a big disconnect with how familiar we are with where our food comes from. Um, it's just like people have no idea what it takes to make something. And I'm like, and I say that not to be like the people are uninformed. I'm like, even if they understand the process, it's like, okay, you want to shoot in the desert. Like, oh, this needs to be in the desert or whatever. It's like you have to bring everything to make the desert hospitable for people to be at. It's like not only like tents, tables, it's like you need air conditioned trailers, you need bathrooms, you need this, et cetera, et cetera. And it's incredibly expensive, because it's for a million reasons. And so I totally get it. And it's like it's amazing when a show doesn't really go into a valley, but like just like creating content on like the scale of a television show, it takes so much manpower, it takes so much money, it takes so much time, and it's like there's creative turnover, the disagreements. It's like and on the small scale stuff that I've done, I'm like the creative disagreements I've seen between the people with the money and the people who are trying to make the thing. You have to make compromises constantly. And on a commercial, it can be frustrating, but at the end of the day, it's like you'd hope that people would be like, who cares? This is a commercial for whatever. This is going to be an Instagram post. But on a television show, it's like I think like the last season of House of the Dragon, there's supposed to be a huge battle at the end, but like the corporate powers be at HBO, it's like someone 10 degrees removed from the show behind a desk somewhere is like, oh, we can't spend that this quarter. And then, it trickles down to the show and they're like, oh, and so then it just like abruptly ends, So not only is it a absolute feat to create any sort of long form TV show right now, it's like it's just like anything could happen. That's not necessarily the fault of the creators of the show. There's so much like corporate turmoil that it's like it's like somebody with a business degree gets hired 10 degrees away from the show, and then they're like, let's do this, and then domino effect trickle down, and it's like, okay, actually half the cast is gone, there's a new showrunner, and the budget is halved, and like let's see what happens. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like I just have like great respect for anybody who's made a television show or a movie, especially in the past 10 or so years of our like streaming sort of hellscape.
One last thing about Mad Men. I'm just curious if you've ever heard of this theory. People thought that Mad Men was going to end on September 11th. And I think it kind of stems from the introductory theme where you see somebody falling from the tower or falling down. And I guess a lot of people, when the show was airing in real time, they thought this. Have you ever heard of this theory before?
I haven't. I have seen the theory that somebody was going to jump off the building, and I think I saw somebody commented. I think that maybe Matthew Weiner had said, because I think the show was maybe originally supposed to be a limited series, and Harry Crane was going to jump off the building or something like that. And so um, I haven't heard that specific theory around 9/11, but it ultimately makes me think, like, we are all, for people who are, maybe 29 years or older, it's like we're all sort of 9/11 brains.
Yeah.
you know it's like we all, my college thesis, I guess it was a thesis, I don't know, I only have a bachelor degree, but I wrote about how action movies pre 9/11, the action was shot from like a fixed off wide angle. Like, if you think you've seen Independence Day,
Hmm. Yeah.
it's like when the White House explodes, it's like a wide angle of a miniature, and it just like, when you get but then if you think about really like any of the Avengers movies and like a lot of Marvel movie, it's like when a building is exploding, the camera is POV looking up, and there's a lot of dust, and the building is like coming down on top of them. So I think if you look at like 9/11, the action sequences pre and post 9/11, you get a lot more firsthand, like, it emulates the video recordings of people who were on the ground on the day on 9/11. And I think it's like, I think maybe someone did it on purpose. Now it's just kind of the style, but it sort of evokes that visceral reaction. I think it subconsciously connects to like that other video, the other videos that we've all seen so many times of the destruction. I'm imagining the person who's like, okay, tonight's the finale. Don is in the middle of nowhere racing cars. I wonder if they're gonna jump, 70 or 40 years to 9/11, and then that guy afterward being like, I had a better idea for the finale.
There was an interview that John Hamm did on the Rich Eisen show where I think Rich Eisen asks him, where would Don Draper be today? And John Hamm says that, oh, there's no question Don Draper would be dead. To think of like a Don Draper surviving until 2001, I don't know. It seems like his lifestyle in the show was not great. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I imagine he would. And it's like my sort of take on the finale, which I guess want to stress, is just like, well, one guy thought, just like, yeah, I don't think that Don really changes at all at the end of the show. I just think, we've seen him sort of have little revelations throughout. And I guess like the last episode might have been the biggest revelation he's had, but like, I just think there's no shot that that he's really like better or like a good father or basically changes anything about his life after the finale. And so, yeah, I think he's 40 at the end of the show. Yeah, I don't think he's making it to 2000.
Don kind of makes me think of like a James Gandolfini as Tony, or even like in Breaking Bad and Walter White. Do you see? I know people use this term anti-hero a lot to describe like Walter White or Tony Soprano. Is Don kind of similar to those two men in the show? Is he sort of, in your opinion, like a anti-hero, quote unquote?
Yeah, I'd have to, I think, maybe like brush up on the definition of anti-hero to like say it like inclusively. But I would say, as far as like horrible guy that we love to watch, yeah, he's totally right there. And something that I would that people would comment that it's something I took away from the show that people who wanted to disagree with me in the comments would bring up, is that people would say like I harp too much on the advertising, and that the show is not about advertising, it's about the characters, which I totally get. But I also disagree with. I'm like, no, the show is also about advertising. I think a lot of times people get caught up with like, the show's not about this. It's actually about this. And I go, well, right. But also it's called Mad Men and they work in an advertising office. And, part of the allure of the show is the pitches. It's the pitches, it's the concepts, it's the and well, I'm not trying to like play down any of the character arcs that happen. As much as we were taught watching Walter White cook meth or James Gandolfini do mob stuff, it's like part of when the show dragged for me is I'm like, can we see Don think of some stuff to sell, please? Uh, and I think that Mad Men and where like Walter White, sorry, not Walter White, where James Gandolfini's character Tony and Don Draper like really sort of like line up for me is like in the later seasons where it's like I'm kind of sick of these guys. Like in Breaking Bad, I never really felt that way about Walt because it was like the show just like moves so well. It has such an excellent pace to it, and yeah, I mean, it's like the more I watch something, the more of an affinity I have for it. But the first time that I watched season 7 of The Soprano or the Mad Men, I was like, I don't want to watch this show anymore. I was like, let's just get through it. Like, let's just see. It's like like my limit for Don was like 5.5 seasons or 6.5 seasons, and then I was like, I'm not having fun watching this guy anymore. And kind of the same thing with The Sopranos. Like, it's been a while since I've seen the last season of The Sopranos, but it just gets so dark. Stops kind of being fun, and it's like you lose those moments where you're like, oh, these mob guys they're bastards, but they're kind of silly. So it's like, and it's like I can't think of the character's name right now, but the one closeted member of the mafia who's gay, and then he has the whole arc where he goes to New Hampshire and finds somebody, and then he's brutally murdered in a hate crime way. It's like, okay, guys, like we get it, wrap it up. Like, and I felt a similar way about Mad Men, where I was kind of just like tired of Don. So, but yeah, anti-hero or not, he totally is one of those guys who's a monster, but it's fun to watch.
How did you get started in producing things? Is that what your college degree was related to that?
Yeah, I went to school for economics, and then I switched 2 years in because I was just like business school was very easy. I had a 4.0, and it was not because I was a great student. It's like my first day in like business math, we were plotting XY points on a graph, and I had credit for calculus, and I was like, I could have tested out day one, and it's like, so a lot of my classes were sort of like that. And yeah, I just like I ended up being the guest on like my friend's talk show for her final in her communication class. And I was like, I just had a blast, and I was like, oh, I want to switch into this. I'd rather do this. And I think about that moment because like obviously it's like, your life is a series of choices, domino effect. Who knows where you'd be? But I'm like, if I didn't switch, I might have $1 million right now, like some of my business school counterparts who do. But hey, good for them. So yeah, I switched into communication, and then because I was on the school improv team, there was a writer at Late Night with Seth Meyers, who had founded the improv team, and I got an internship there for a semester, which was like, 30 Rock is probably my favorite show, and so it was like really, it was so sick. I was just like, so I remember when I got the call, I was like, I did it, I made it, blah blah blah, and that experience was so great. I mean, I had a absolutely miserable intern supervisor. she she really treated us poorly, and so she was definitely like a blemish on it. And sorry to if anybody from the internship is listening, they'll be like, yeah, they were really not. I mean, they would just like belittle us. It was like we were getting yelled at, and it's so funny to think now that we were so scared of her. And it's like there's a joke in BoJack Horseman where an intern is mistaken for a production assistant, and the production assistant is like, yes. Or sorry, and the intern is like, yes, I was mistaken for a production assistant. So it's like the two absolute slowest guys on the totem rung, And so it's funny to think when I was like, I absolutely had like half a foot in the door. I'm looking up at the person above me being like, oh my God, they're this big, powerful, scary force. Anyways, whatever. Uh, and it was kind of a rude awakening though, afterwards, because I had my dreams. I was like, this year I'm interning at Late Night with Seth, and next year I'm going to be behind the desk hosting some kind of show. And yeah, that didn't happen. I mean, that doesn't happen for anybody. And the other part too is like, I think there was 20 of us interning, and there's only 400, 500 late night TV jobs across all of the shows, cast, like crew, writers, everybody. Um, and especially, I mean, now it's less because they just canceled Colbert. But then in general too, it's like all these late night shows have had layoffs just because it's expensive to produce a show like that every week, especially when there's so much other content everywhere now. So, anyways, yeah, I graduated. Well, sort of. I needed to take a German class after I graduated my senior year to actually get my degree. Don't tell my grandparents. And I just couldn't get a job. You know, it's like I thought that Late Night with Seth intern was going to be sort of like my ticket somewhere, and it wasn't. It's so funny. I actually had a job interview at I think it was Entertainment Tonight. It was some show like that, and it was for a video archivist position, and it was like literally going to be like taking a VHS tape and burning it onto the server or whatever. And the guy goes, "It pays minimum wage, but if you stick around for 6 months, you'll get a raise because minimum wage is going up." And I was like, "Cool, cool, 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 cool." But anyways, in between then, my dad's girlfriend at the time, her niece was a freelance producer director for commercials. And so I worked on a web series for her for free for like 7 days, which was brutal. I think back to that job and I'm like, shoot, if only I had walked away from it all then. Uh, and it's like part of like the reverence I have for making stuff is like, for that job example, it's like I was working for free for experience, but I had a van full of stuff that needed to be unloaded and set up and then broken down and put back in the van every day at the beginning and end of the day. And then in between, you have to go out and get stuff that the production needs. It's like there's just so much. When I think about someone who goes to like a regular office job, like you show up, everything is there, you know? And when you shoot something and it's different every time, there's just so many things that you have to consider. So, um, anyways, I eventually, so I worked with her. Then I worked in a commercial, and you just built like my freelance network. And when you're a production assistant, I joke, it's like people think freelance, like, oh, that's great, you get to choose when you work. But when you're a production assistant and you're making, when I started, it was 175 a day. Um, when you're not working, you're unemployed. You're not freelancing, choosing when you get to work or not. You have money or you don't. And then, so I was in New York. I went to school in New York for 4 years, and then I worked in Brooklyn for a year. And then one of my childhood friends, he was production coordinating a job in Lake Tahoe, and he was Los Angeles based. And so he was like, if you fly yourself to LA and do pickups in the truck, we'll drive to Tahoe together, and then we'll be at like this hotel for like a month shooting this. It was for BF Goodrich. It was for a tire company, and so I went there, and I was in Lake Tahoe for like a month, and every other day we would fly to set in a helicopter, like into the mountains, into the Rubicon Trail. It was sick. Never been in a helicopter since. But then when I was there, the crew was like, I was telling them about all the terrible stuff I did in New York, and they were like, "Oh, you should try it here." Also, the other fun part was like, the company pay when you have a shoot that's not local to wherever the crew is. The company pays to fly them out there, but they don't pay for a production assistant because it's like they're not important enough. So I bought my own ticket to LA because the money I was going to make over the course of the month would be worth it. But I didn't tell anybody that, and they all just assumed that I was like the greatest production assistant in the nation. That they had to fly me out from New York to be able to come to this job. Um, so yeah, and then from there, it's like a couple years later. So basically, like the structure is the production assistants kind of just like they're setting up tables and tents and chairs and the sort of like the catch all. They're doing the garbage, like they're bag like they're both the garbage people and the garbage men because sometimes they have to take it home at the end of the night, and get rid of it. It's like they're just like the all the stuff that falls in all the cracks that falls in between everything. They're responsible for that. Then above them is like production coordinator and like that. Then you're not running around doing labor. You're sitting down. You're on your computer, basically like executing paperwork for the production supervisor and the producer. And then yeah, I did that for like a year, and then now I'm a production supervisor for commercials most of the time. I've produced a few things, um, but yeah, it's just a lot of like I joke that I'm like a wedding planner, but there's like three different brides and they all want different stuff. It's like the client wants this, but they want $1 million project. They only have $100,000, and then the creatives pitch them something that costs $2 million, and then it's just a big mash. It's always a big mash, and you never have enough time. And it's you know a lot of the cliches that people have about Hollywood productions are true. People are really that vapid and petty oftentimes.
What is your ultimate goal? Do you want to stick with this line of work that you're doing or move into other areas?
I think that like ultimately, I mean, I would love to do YouTube full time, and sort of with my freelance schedule, it's like I said no. Like I did this movie, and it was just like it was a lot. It really took a lot out of me, and I was like, I need to take time off just to recoup from that. And also, it's like I wanted to focus on YouTube, and the videos take so much time. I mean, like I've watched the videos on your channel. I know that you know how long it takes to make an hour long video. It's like, it's like well, I mean, besides watching the content, which like I made a video about shrinking movies, and it's like I watched 6 movies in a show. That's 20 hours or 18 hours of stuff, And then also it's like I'm taking time code notes during it, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, the videos can take a long time. But I mean, I really do enjoy it. And so I'd love to do YouTube full time. And I'm like, will anybody from my career listen to this podcast? I'm like, does anybody follow me? I'm like, I really don't like what I do anymore. It just is, it's all consuming, because a lot of the times for the client and the creative agency people, the project is the culmination of half a year of work. And for me, I'm usually on a project for 3 weeks. And so people are living and dying over the details in a way that they absolutely have to because it's their jobs, but also it's like, it's going to be okay, And I try not to take things personally because everybody's getting squeezed. It's like the way the economy is set up. It's like, and not to zoom out too far, but I'm like, our corporate bosses want us to live and die with our middle class jobs because that's what keeps everything above us afloat. And so I have to remind myself sometimes because I mean, probably my least favorite part of my job is like, there's a lot of conflict. It's just like, you're trying to smash a circle through a square peg so many times. And it's like every single job there's somebody that I just have to come to a head with. And it's like, it's never personal. You hope it's never personal. But it's just tough. It's unfortunate. And it's like also somebody in my position, like I was, abuse is a strong word, but it's like, yeah, I was put in a lot of really dangerous situations at work over and over again because of not enough money, poor planning. It's like, and I try to never ever put somebody in those situations, and I don't think I ever have. But a lot of the times, it's like I really have to put up a wall with some of the circumstances and just be like, "Listen, we can't do this. Like, it's not safe. It's not fair. It's not blah blah blah." And it's tough to do that because to whatever agency you're working with or whatever client you're working with, they're just like, well, they want to go somewhere else to get more bang for their buck. And just, the whole bang for your buck conversation results a lot of times in people getting put in terrible situations at work. I think for now I'm sort of stuck because I'm like, I can't really make a horizontal move into another industry because what I do is so niche, it's so specific. And also, I think my resume makes it look like I am lying and I'm unemployed. It's like I have a different job every month. Like it just doesn't, especially now with the whole AI of it all, um, the way that they just scrape your resume when you upload it to any of these sites. It's like I just know that like my resume is not it's not hitting the correct format or the correct buzzwords or how can you explain to like a software that's just going to reject your resume if it doesn't have more than like 6 months of continuity at each position, why I have 10 jobs in a year on my last thing. So um yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep doing it. I think probably my plan for the next year is like I'm definitely going to keep doing it, keep accepting jobs in my downtime, just try to make really compelling YouTube videos.
Have you worked with any big name, whether that's actor, actress, or I don't know, director, or have you ever crossed paths with somebody who's very prominent?
I sign a lot of NDAs, and I'm always like, well, when these NDAs ever, is anyone ever going to get me? But I definitely think I could talk about like late night with Seth. I mean, like that's not a secret. It's like obviously, it's like we were in the same offices as Seth, as Seth Meyers, and like one time we like Chobani sent the office a bunch of yogurt randomly. They like it's just like as like a nice thing, and so I was unloading the yogurt in the kitchen, and Seth walked in and was like, "What's going on?" And I went, "Oh, it's yogurt day," as like a joke. And then one other time when I wasn't there, they got another yogurt shipment and they were unloading it. And Seth came in the kitchen and told the interns, he goes, "Oh, it's yogurt day." So I was like, "Let's go. That's fine." Yeah, one time Mindy Kaling came in and said hello to us. Drew Barrymore said hello to us one time. All the interns were packed into a corner like sardines. And so people would just pop in sometimes and be like, "Oh, hey, I was an intern once." And we'd be like, "Whoa." So yeah, definitely had some fun run-ins. And I do think that now I'm kind of at a point where it's like when I was younger, I was like, it's sick. I get to have these really cool experiences. And now that I'm 31, I'm like, okay, so I got to have cool experiences, but I never got a stock package or like a good healthcare plan. It's like I part of the lure of the industry, which I always think I'm like, how many different people call their industry the industry? Like in Pittsburgh, if someone's like the industry, they're probably talking about steel. In my industry and like, film and TV and commercials and stuff, it's like, yeah, you get to see and do a lot of cool stuff. But after a while, you start to figure out that is like they're undercutting you on a lot of other stuff that you need to live because you got to go do this thing once. You got to fly around in a helicopter for work for a couple days. It doesn't matter that we 1099 you and you're going to owe 30% of the money to taxes. It's like, that's kind of the gist.
Would you ever go back to doing stand up?
I don't think so. I sort of fell out of love with the medium. Louis C.K. was my favorite stand-up growing up, and definitely when all the stuff about him came out, I was like, ooh. And then after doing it and grinding, I would just be at like an open mic with a bunch of other people who I thought were doing really hacky, terrible stuff, and I'm like, I kind of like the tip of the stand-up iceberg is like the stuff you see that makes it to television. That's 1% of it. The other 99% of comedy happens in little black box theaters or coffee shops that close down at night that someone like rents out for a comedy show. And it's comedians doing stand-up to other comedians because in the 90s when it's like maybe you would have had an audience for an open mic. I've never been to an open mic where there was an audience that wasn't 99% comedians who were waiting for their turn to go. And so I just like I didn't have like the social media grind attitude that you had to have, because it's like you got to be posting, you got to build your following, and then you just have to start hosting shows. When you invite comedians onto that, you want to invite comedians who host their own shows, and then you get invited onto theirs. And, it just goes round and round and round. And so while I like really have great admiration for anybody who's like succeeding at doing comedy right now, it just was like I could just tell I was like swimming upstream, and I was like, this is just too hard. This is too hard for me. And And to be quite honest, it's like I was not good enough at it to really, I think like in college when I had a sort of captive audience of my friends that could like walk down from our dorm 2 minutes to see me and a couple other people do it. It's and I had a very relatable audience. Like it's funny. I remember I would do stand up at my college and I would crush, and then I would do the same set in the city and die. you know, um, I do like a little improv here and again just because it's kind of like fun. It's like fun for me to do, but um, I'm doing that just like at like a practice, like with other, like there's no audience. Um, but I definitely have that like performing itch, but like, posting on YouTube is really fulfilling that for me. So, yeah, no immediate plans to do stand up anytime soon.
Well, I look forward to all of your future content, Will, and I've enjoyed everything so far that you've made. Very good insights and very zoomed in. I think you used that word earlier. I really like the zoomed in mentality on things that I don't think about in any of these shows. So I really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah. No, my pleasure. For everybody listening, for people who want to get in touch with you, I know we have the YouTube channel. I'll definitely link link to that in the description. But you're on Twitter, you said, right?
I am, but I actually I just have like a burner account.
Ah,
My only like front facing platform is YouTube for now. Nothing else to plug.
well, the handle is at Will Won't Stop Talking. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. For anybody out there, please check it out. Great content, and yeah, looking forward to the future of your channel. Thank you again. And for everybody out there listening, my name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care, everybody.